It's been announced that I don't have permission. You better hurry up. Just kidding.
City states.
No, all one word, city wireless, capital C, capital W.
You're right.
I'm almost there. Give me a few minutes here. We are live.
Okay, we'll call the City of Kewaunee Common Council meeting for Monday, February 13th, 2023 to order. Let the record show all members are present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
No.
All right, item 3, approval of January 9th, 2023 Common Council minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Would make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next item on the agenda, public comment communications, 3-minute time limit per person. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak tonight or public comment? Please come up, state your name and your address, please.
It's Kathy Holman Dustpot, 1408 Dodge Street in Kewaunee. Happy Valentine's, everybody.
Same to you.
I see you have a packed agenda, so I'm just gonna read a statement so I can keep in your time frame. And I'm here to represent the Pierpoint Development Group regarding the Gathering at Pierpoint proposed development, which I see there's a few things on your agenda you're planning to discuss. I'm not sure what the protocol is for that, but first, I was not made aware of that matters of development of a Gathering at Pierpoint would be on today's agenda. And I wasn't notified to attend, so I can only assume an opportunity for discussion will not be made available. Therefore, before these proceedings begin, I would like to address council and community with a brief statement regarding our development efforts over the last several years. The Gathering at Pierpoint Hotel Resort concept was based on the Waterfront Harbor District Improvement Plan and developed around the uniqueness and the unique attributes of Kewaunee, which was meant to provide a positive impact and economic catalyst for future growth. And by creating a unique boutique hotel concept, that would become a signature in the region as an innovative wellness destination. A development of this magnitude is unproven in the area and has understandably been no easy task. But experience has taught me that nothing worthwhile is ever easy. As of late, it appears our relationship with city planners has become more contentious than cooperative. And I apologize for that. It's not my intention. Simply put, I was just trying to do a good thing for Kewaunee. If it is, and I ask you today, if it is not what you want, you need to tell us. If it is what you want with modifications, you need to work with us by participating in intense planning meetings and activities. If you're not willing or simply cannot devote the time and resources that will take, I understand that. We just ask you to tell us that, please. If you have a better plan, and there could be, if you have a better plan for the site and you would like to pursue that plan, please let us know that, and perhaps we can participate and help in some way. As has always been my intent, I will continue to support what the council and the community decides today and in the future for the benefit of Kewaunee, of course. I can only ask that you will also help us in our efforts to improve tourism in the region by supporting our Gathering at Pier Point Hotel Resort concept. As complicated as it appears, we have the support. Whether it is built on the Hamachek-Klockner location or somewhere in this region, it will benefit the whole area. I promise you. I'm just here today to invite you to participate with your ideas, with your direct contact with me, with any insight. Thank you very much, all of you, for your dedication.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak tonight under public comment? Is there anyone else that wishes to speak tonight under public comment? If not, public comment is closed. All right, we'll move on to item 5, boards, commissions, committee and staff reports, finance committee agenda and minutes and staff reports. Anyone have any comments on any of those? If not, then we'll move on to item 6, mayor's report. Consideration of future development of Hamachek-Klockner, discussion with city attorney. At this time, I'm going to turn this item over to Council President Zimmerman and the city attorney.
Kathy just walked out. Does she want to participate in the conversation?
Maybe you should ask.
I
her
had a
today.
couple of questions I would like to ask her.
Somebody want to?
Somebody go stop her then.
Yeah, can you get her?
Yeah, or just ask her.
Anthony, would you like to explain why Jeff recused himself?
Sure. So, over the last couple of weeks, we can wait.
Yeah, give her the courtesy.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not there. Is she coming back or?
You're on top.
May take her a minute to walk back.
She, I declined to come back. She said. Good to go. All right. So over the last couple of weeks, Heath and the mayor asked for some, my help on some issues with regard to the development of the property. Specifically issues that dealt with conflicts of interest. Go back a couple of months. You'll recall we had a discussion about how the city went to have a meeting. Heath and the mayor went to have a meeting with the potential developer.
Hey, Tony,
Yes.
I wonder if it would be better if you just went to the podium, because I know some people have told me that it's very difficult to hear. If you wouldn't mind.
You all good?
Well, when they're watching on
Oh,
YouTube, they said
yeah.
it's extremely difficult
Sure.
to hear. I'm sorry, I just,
I get some extra steps in, so.
Yeah.
it'll be- Okay, so as I was saying, a couple weeks ago, Heath and Mayor asked for my involvement on an issue. And the issue dealt with conflicts of interest and the development of the Hamachek property. And it all kind of started a couple of months ago when Heath and Mayor were set to have a meeting with the potential developer. And showed up to the meeting, and there was a representative of Cedar Corp, the city's outside retained city engineers, there on behalf of the developer. And that raised some eyebrows. And at that point, feeling as though there was a potential conflict of interest or something going on, Heath and Mayor decided to call off the meeting for that day and figure out what was kind of going on here. And as your city attorney, I agree with that decision. That I don't know all of the specific rules of conflict of interest that apply to engineers, like maybe they would to attorneys, but at least there was something that needed to be investigated a little bit more at the time. Then we had that meeting, I believe it was in January or December. Things got a little contentious about that meeting was canceled. Okay. Then last week, Tuesday, February 7th, you all got an email from Ms. Howlett Despot, if I'm pronouncing that correctly,
talking about some of the history of the development of the project and the Pier Point development and all that. And there was some language in there that raised further eyebrows with regard to the conflict of interest issue. And I have a copy of that email in front of me. I don't know if you all do too, but one of the things I was asked to look into was some content in paragraph number 1 that Ms. Howlett Despot identified, and I'll just read it here. Since June 21, 2021, all development activities between the city of Kewaunee and Pier Point Development have been primarily contingent upon our producing proof of financing, both equity and debt, from creditable financial investment partners. And that's true. Since I've been involved, we've been talking about that. Next sentence. Due to the city of Kewaunee's perception of a potential conflict of interest relating to the relationship of investment partner and the city of Kewaunee civil engineering consultant Cedar Corp, the city opted out of a September 24, 2022 meeting, which was set to discuss Pier Point investor interest and financing plan for the gathering at Pier Point in Kewaunee. That raised some flags, and that, to be honest, didn't match with what my understanding of the situation was, because of the inclusion of the term relationship of investment partner. That was news, right? Mayor Heath and I talked that through, and I don't know any of this. This is just what my understanding is that not only was Cedar Corp potentially going to serve as an engineer for the developer, but also either directly through Cedar Corp or through a related investment arm, like a lot of businesses have, would also be investing in development at Pier Point or whatever it's called. Is that not true?
No, that's not true.
Okay, well, that's good. That's not true.
We were, well, and if you want, go ahead, but I can kind of speak on this afterwards, or if you want, I can speak now as well. Yeah, we're in no way, shape or form investing Cedar Corporation or Cedar Price, who is our private development business group, funding, financing, investing anything into that project at all whatsoever. From my understanding early on, we were asked if we would do some of the engineering and design work for them. And from the start, it basically said if the city has any issues with that we would respectfully decline, because we're here to work with you guys. Our relationship with our clients is usually small communities such as yours, and we want to be an extension of your staff. So that caught us just as off guard, if not more, than you guys, because we haven't talked to anybody from that development in a long time, and thinking about this too. We'd be more than happy to, even if you want some sort of official statement or something in writing, just explaining, hey, we're no way, shape or form any part of this development. We're here to work with you. I think we were pretty clear up front if there was any concerns that we walk away from any opportunity to work with the city. We've been strong on that stance right from the beginning.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I think that do.
Does everybody feel that way?
Whoever the lawyer says.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think it's best for everybody's sake, just so we have a clear record. So that was news to us, and it sounds like it was news to Cedar Corp as well. But either way, the conversation went forward, and because this whole entire situation has become a little contentious, and clearly there's some misunderstandings on the developer side on what, in my short time here, is been made pretty clear what the city is really looking for. We got to talking about it, and with Jeff's ownership of a lodging establishment in the area, and this proposal to be a lodging establishment development, we talked it through and we decided, you know what, it's probably best. It's maybe not technically required, but it's probably best that Jeff remove himself from any of the conversations or deliberations about developing the Hamachek-Klockner property for the time being, to avoid there being any appearance of either impropriety or misinterpretation of some of the things that are talked about, whether, oh, well, are you torpedoing this project because it doesn't help, any of that. And as I explained to Heath and the mayor, my personal view as representing the city is better safe than sorry. If it's a question of do I recuse or do I not, unless it's something completely fabricated, my general view is, yeah, just recuse, because that way nothing's tainted. So long as the Hamachek-Klockner property is still open for development, whether that's this developer
or another developer until we're far enough along to decide, okay, is this a potential lodging establishment? And if so, Jeff would still be staying out, right? If we get down a path where this property is not going to be developed in a lodging establishment, but maybe something else, and it's clear that there's not going to be any of this overlap, then Jeff could come back in. But until then, Jeff's going to recuse from all these development discussions, and Janita's going to take the lead on any of those. So with that issue, do any of you have any questions?
I just had a couple of questions, Tony, and it relates to this. I don't know if this is, if I should wait until Heath's done or if you're done, but in the project plan and district boundary here, it says tax increment district number 3. This was approved in June of, looks like July of 2020. On page 11, and I've been trying to get an answer to this. It says developer assistance gathering at Pier Point. And I'm just going to read the description here. And it says total $4.5 million. Description, the city will contribute an amount not to exceed $4.5 million in TID funding towards the gathering at Pier Point development project as developer assistance. The question, the one word I have in that whole sentence is will contribute. It doesn't say may contribute, can contribute, should, it doesn't say anything of that. It says will contribute. My question is, the council passed this. Does that word will contribute? Does that bind the city to contributing to Pier Point development? Or any other development that may, it specifically lists Pier Point development in here. But does that word will bind the city to contribute funds to that project? That's my question.
And as we sit here tonight, John, I can't answer that question because I haven't reviewed that document in its entirety.
Okay.
Now, I would be surprised if there was a commitment to contributing $4.5 million to a project that's not that doesn't have all of its I's dotted and its T's crossed. Usually in situations where public financing through a TID or a TIF is provided, that's usually kind of one of the last things that's taken care of, right? And it's, hey, I can get the financing, but to make it easier, we need some sewer mains or some roads or other infrastructure. City, will you work with us to get that put in?
The infrastructure is also mentioned in here at $445,000.
$445,000,
Yes.
but it doesn't say what the other 4
It
point.
says, creating a pedestrian walkway and a trailhead landing, 25,000 berry lines, 120,000. You might want to read the document. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
it, but I guess my question was that particular paragraph. And I wish Kathy would have stayed because I wanted to ask her if anyone from the city had made any verbal or written commitment to city funds.
Well, I'll answer that in 2 parts. The first part is if anybody had any verbal or written commitments that wasn't the council for that amount of money, that would echo other issues that we've looked into. And I, as your lawyer, would say, well, no, there was no authority to bind the city in that regard. Second answer, though, is tying back. Your question is looking for an opinion of, does the city have some sort of obligation on that? And unless I review both that as well as the minutes of the meetings that were going on at the time, I'm not prepared to provide an opinion at this time.
Is that something you would, I'm sorry, is that something that you would consider looking at?
Well, if the city asks me to, that's my job.
Pardon me? We can do that. Okay, you can do that.
I've only been in city council for a year and just learning, I'm just seeing what Kathy's email was with a bunch of documents. Does anyone from the city know of anything on paper, like what John says, that's written or a commitment to this project whatsoever? Because I see lot of proposals out there, but they seem to be this is from what I'm seeing, everyone, one-sided. I'm not seeing any documentation that the city agreed to anything with anybody's signature on it. Just a lot of proposals of requirements from the city to an individual, but I have not seen personally myself any documents with anybody's signature on it from the city saying, yeah, we can agree to this, we agree to that, we agree to that. So that's what's confused me. And I wish Kathy would have been here too to answer that. Because if you have anything to add, please.
What I eventually found a file that the predecessor left behind that includes a bunch of written stuff, some of which is unintelligible. There's a draft of a commitment letter for Mayor Jelinek to sign, which wasn't for 4.5, but it was for 2.5. But one of the things I find repeatedly throughout the whole thing, all of the written correspondence, all of the stuff that they went through meeting after meeting, repeated references to where's the financing? What's your financing look like? How are you paying for this? There's even a letter, and I shared this with Tony, from a former city attorney who said, don't you dare sign an MOU or development agreement until you know where the money's coming from. So now you have two attorneys who are basically saying the same thing. But there's nothing in there that includes a formal signature of anything. There's like I say, the one letter, but it's stamped draft. I haven't seen any evidence of an actual letter that went out with a signature on it. So I have no record of anything as of yet that I've been able to track down and includes that.
Was that letter signed by anyone from the city?
It was
Committing
not
those
signed.
funds.
It was just a draft.
It was just a draft.
It was stamped, watermarked with a draft.
Okay.
So,
Of note, I remember Mr. Linder, who was supposed to be part of her financial team, standing right there at that podium in November, stating that they would not be in favor of using TID money. And furthermore, Mr. Linder stated words to the effect that these projects never really work out that well when their cities have TID money with projects like this. I'm sure it's still on video. You can look it up. But that's what was said in November. So I find it interesting that he brings this document up where supposedly they were asking for 4.5 million in TID money, but he doesn't think that's a good idea. And he doesn't know about that. It's odd. Seems odd.
Yes. To echo real quick, Heath did provide me with prior city attorney's correspondence on the issue. And Attorney Nesbitt hit it right on the head. And I completely agree with the analysis he gave in 2019. There's been a lot of these memoranda of understandings which don't really spell out anything specific. Just kind of like, oh, city, you're gonna get behind us. I've reviewed the latest one. And I'll tell you right out here, I won't be in favor of any development on this property or any other that has a memorandum of understanding that doesn't have concrete terms, including financing, how much and from where, deadlines that say this will be done by this time. And if there is city money, whether through TIF or otherwise requested, exactly why that's being requested, what it's going to be used for, the timing of it that would have to go in, and why the city needs it, needs to provide it, and why it can't be privately financed. So I think with that, there can be a lot of issues where Heath emails, and if it's an MOU, unless it's a rock star MOU that basically is an agreement without all the legal mumbo jumbo, I can't advise you to sign anything.
So was this MOU drafted with any input from the city whatsoever?
no,
It didn't appear to be.
In fact, it's a virtual carbon copy of the same one that was provided in October of 2019. The one that Randy Nesbitt reviewed is virtually the same.
So generally memorandums of understanding are something that's collaborative,
Yeah.
where it's a common understanding that you decide that you're going to codify.
Mhm.
Have you ever known any municipality to just accept a document like that without any collaboration?
Without any input from the municipality, no. Usually want to respond with, well, we don't agree with this section. We think this is overblown. we want to rework this stuff, we want to come to some kind of mutual understanding. It's not usually one where you hand it to somebody and say, here, take it or leave it. It's like, okay, well then leave it.
Right.
I mean, if, I like to use the analogy, and I think I mentioned this to Janita in a meeting we had last week. In this case, you are a private property owner. You're a public entity, but you're a private property owner. If somebody walks up to you as a private property owner and says, here, I'll buy your property and develop it, but here, I have a whole bunch of conditions that I want you to pay for to fix all those problems so I can then develop your property. You tell them to go pound sand. You never accept something like that, ever.
It's a surrender document.
Yeah, I mean, right, and we want you to just give up everything and pay us to do it. No, I don't know of a single property owner who would ever do that.
And-
Unless they were coerced or otherwise, not in a,
Yeah.
right, out of financial means to do so.
It's a fair statement. I mean, everyone here, the city of Kewaunee wants to see development in that area.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I'd love to see Kathy's project be successful. But as stewards of the city finances, as citizens of Kewaunee, we just want somebody to come to the table with a legitimate offer that the Kewaunee, city of Kewaunee can counter offer if need be in good faith and backed up with proof of financing. You know, if I'm selling you my car, guys, show me the cash, then you can take a test drive. Is that fair?
Yeah, is that not what we asked at the January 9th meeting?
That's all we're asking.
And several before.
So, but I agree with Eric, we're not stopping any development. We are not giving any more exclusivity, but we also haven't had our questions properly answered that we've asked. Is that?
Each time's valuable. Everybody at the city's time is valuable. The lawyer's time is very valuable. We had to cut him a check for being here tonight. Just come to the table with an offer. We can counter offer on.
Which we appreciate, by the way.
Welcome.
Just another quick 2 cents for me and then I'll stop talking. Memoranda of understandings are usually documents that we would use for a very specific and defined thing. Like think about your police liaison MOU with the school district. Very clear and concise, very narrow issue. You would never have an MOU on a major real estate transaction. You might have a letter of intent, which is, it's not a binding document. It's just, hey, this is what we think. Let's get to work. From what I understand, and even reading the letter in 2019, Eric, you're exactly right, is that the consistent request has been, show us you have the money, and then we'll devote the resources to getting a deal potentially done. But until you show us you have the money, we're not going to devote the resources, and we're certainly not going to commit anything, right? This MOU is asking you to do just that, commit things without us having to show you the money. And again, this is asking for another year of exclusivity, right? To me, when I see those, it's usually, I don't want somebody else coming in and doing what I want to do while I'm still figuring out how I can do what I want to do. I think that might be what you have going on here. Any other questions for me on that one?
No.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Pete, did you have any more that we needed to add to this, or do you feel we've covered it all?
One of the things that was discussed, one of the things that was referenced in the email was about the environmental conditions of the property. So I thought it'd be, so in my action thing covered, I included a series of the things that DNR said with respect to the site as of June 2018. Most of which are a series of what ifs. If you're going to do this, then you need to do this. And if you have this, then you have to do this. If you want to have this kind of development, that's what this is suited for. If you want to do something different, you have to talk to us. It's basically, it sort of lays out a series of conditions for future development of the site. One of the only open-ended piece was a vapor assessment for volatile organic compounds or VOCs. I contacted Dan O'Connell earlier today with Cedar Corp. I rely on Dan for a lot of this types of environmental assessments. He's done a lot of the work at Fisherman's Point. He said to do something like that on this site would cost about $5,500 to do a similar kind of assessment, either to verify that you have VOCs that have to be addressed through some kind of development condition, or to verify that they're not at a level that requires any kind of mitigation, either on the site through removal of something or in future development with vapor barriers and other things on the buildings that would be put on the site. So he figured maybe about 6 vapor points across the site with methane monitoring and vapor analysis and then a summary. Not that big of a deal. Relatively easy to embark on, although I did recommend waiting until about April, because that's when you can know for sure you're not gonna have any ice or frozen soil or anything like that could lock up vapor. But otherwise, I just wanted to point that out, that was
Yeah.
the one remaining thing that's left to do.
Can that study, that $5,500 study or whatever it was, because this is a TIF district, can that be charged off to the TIF as an expense?
You could.
I think you could, yeah.
You have to have money.
Yeah, there's gotta be a tip
Right.
money.
Because right now,
It's money.
the TID 3 balance is negative 20,000. So, yeah, I mean, you have no assets in the TID district right now, so.
I guess because Kathy did come in and she did request that we give her some sort of response and she is not here. Will she be addressed in some way?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
We can create a formal letter saying we're gonna move forward with, if that's whatever the decision of the court council is with regard to decision of the court. Decision of the council as to, as to what we're gonna do moving forward.
I have a question about the TIF monies. The TID has properties
Mhm.
that we would be getting incremental tax increases from, so I'm just wondering where that money is. There's debt. No, I appreciate that, but there's also, we should be getting some incremental increase from the property owners that are in the TID. So is that, so that just doesn't offset whatever's been spent?
Well, if whatever's being spent, if the increment's not enough to cover your expenses, it's gonna put you in the hole.
I appreciate
Which
that,
is-
but are we
which is-
getting, but we are getting.
You're getting you're
Okay.
getting tax increment, but it's
Okay,
not
but
enough to
it's not
cover
enough.
the
That's fine.
expenses.
As long as-
Yep.
but-
And,
Okay,
and usually the way TIDs work is that you only get whatever's increased above the baseline.
Correct.
I appreciate it,
So
but we
it-
should be getting at least something in.
There might be something, but not very much.
Okay,
Because
maybe-
there hasn't been anything, there hasn't been a lot of redevelopment going on
Development
in the areas, right?
So
So,
value.
so you're not getting any vacant lots that are all of a sudden sprouting houses. There's nothing like that happening in the TID, so therefore you're not getting any massive increases in money coming through.
Can I just say in this letter, are we going to address her in the sense that with expectations, you stated that you're going to say what we were going to do as council
Mhm.
and as a city, but are you being clear on what you're expecting from her specifically? So there's none of this. I mean, we've got 3 years of he said, she said, that's very hard to follow when you've only been here 1 year and it's been a battle to catch up. So,
Yeah.
you know, she needs to be clear because clearly none of us are.
Well, I think if you move forward with an alternative, which is to say a request for qualifications.
Yep.
You can simply make that clear that the RFQ will spell out all the requirements of things that we would expect somebody to submit in response to that RFQ. So once it's submitted, we will make you aware of it so that you can participate if you elect to.
And the timeline on that and a clarity as to how it should be submitted via letter or whatever.
Whenever that RFQ is formalized and we issue it, and that's issued, and we're gonna work with the Public Property Committee on that. On creating that RFQ, make sure we have some kind of baseline and then put it out. It'll include deadlines, it'll include the other information, all that stuff will be incorporated in that RFQ document, so that people will be aware that not just Pierpoint, but anybody else who is interested in, we'll post it, we'll try and get it spread as far and wide as we can do it.
Yeah.
So.
Along those lines, I seem to remember a woman that was representing Cedar Corp who had some ideas on how to market that property. I think she was here last summer, late in the summer. Would you be consulting with Cedar Corp to see what she could possibly come up with for a marketing strategy?
We could do that as well.
That might be a good idea.
And we can definitely float it around, get it to various sundry organizations and publications and get it. The idea is to broadcast as wide as we can to get as wide a base as we can.
And Kathy, to tie on to your question, when we were talking about this communication to her, there were two important things, I think, from our chairs of what we wanted to make sure we included in there. First is that, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but my impression since my involvement is that nobody has any, like you said, Eric, nobody has any desire to necessarily torpedo her development, right? And so to the extent her and her group are taking it like, well, you just don't want to work with us, I think that that's totally not true. And that's one of the things that we want to put in the letter. While confirming that, hey, well, all we're doing now is going out for proposals. And if she wants to submit a proposal, by all means, go ahead. But your proposal will have to satisfy the qualifications and requirements of the proposal. One of which will be, you need a financing commitment letter that shows you're gonna be able to pay for this. And that's why that RFQ or RFP or whatever we want to call it process is so important, is to say, this is exactly what we need and want. And if you don't provide us with it, you're not a qualified developer, and thanks for your time.
Part of the reason that you go with an RFQ is because an RFP would require that you'd have to know an awful lot of specific information about the site in order to make a reasonable guess as to what it's supposed to look like, conceptual idea, what you think it's gonna, or your opinion of probable cost is, and how you expect to figure it out. RFQ merely mean that we want to know who we're dealing with, what your financial backing is, what your experience has been in your field, and what you're generally proposing to try to do for us on this site. So that we're trying to take one step back from that so we can cull the herd and come up with something where people don't have to invest quite as much upfront just to explain themselves. With that being said, eventually we're gonna want somebody to actually get down to brass tacks, go out there, take a look at the site, do some specific investigations, and then based on what they're proposing to do, what's their feasibility for developing that property and whether or not they think they're gonna be able to make it work. And or if they need some kind of city help with something specific, we can figure out how to make that work.
I think that would also clarify a lot, because a lot has been submitted in different facets is what you're talking about, but it's old at this point anyway. So even if some of that has been submitted, it needs to be resubmitted with current prices and current environment that we're in right now. It's not the same. So she's clear on that too.
So what I'm hearing is we're gonna have Heath drop a letter with what our expectations are for the request for the RFQ. And Anthony will help in the guidance of that so that we have everything spelled out so that everybody's clear as to what the city's side is. And we will send that out in an email, and it was also stated sending a registered letter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
You can do that.
Okay.
I was under the impression that Cedar Corp was gonna draft the RFQ, correct?
Assist.
They can help us write the RFP.
We're writing it in house.
It's gonna go through the public property.
Okay.
For review, so but we want to make sure we at least have a good stab at it. We'll
Because I know
ask them for assistance because they'll
You
know
were
some-
involved with it, right? I mean, because we talked about it with,
Something that would work.
I can't
That's
think of
what
his name.
Yeah,
there was Jim and
Kelly was
here and talked about, there's opportunities to assist as far as marketing goes, what should be, our planning team can help out with applications that we've seen with.
That's what I got.
Whatever you guys need.
If I'm understanding is, it's not just Keith's gonna be drafting his letter, it's gonna be going through committee, and that's gonna be open meetings, right?
I think our plan was.
To respond to Kathy's email.
To respond to her with a basic letter saying,
Yeah.
we're gonna be submitting an RFQ.
Yep.
Stay tuned. Trust us, it's gonna go through the Public Property Committee. When it's published, we'll send you a copy. Be advised, undoubtedly, one of the requirements is going to be firm financial backing.
And the agenda for the public property communities is always open, and anyone's welcome to come and participate,
Correct.
Yeah, but
including yourself.
we're not gonna do the letter with public property committee. What we're gonna do.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
We're
that. I
doing
understand
the
that.
RFQ with the public property.
Yes.
committee.
So we need this in the form of a motion to move it forward, correct?
And so it's collective.
No.
You don't wanna do that?
No, we're
I
good.
think it was just the mayor's report that said there was
No motions.
no
Okay.
motion on that.
Okay. But we have guidance for administration and the lawyer and,
Yeah, I think we have sufficient time.
Very clear.
Okay.
okay,
The bottom line is we're just not addressing the MOI, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And you're gonna do that.
yeah.
The council isn't addressing it.
I will go get the mayor.
Okay.
And I will go home. Yeah, glad to be here.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Yep, no problem. Good to see everybody. Here, quick questions. Is the judge your brother? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'll see him on Wednesday.
Don't miss that.
I will.
Going to find.
You want me to just draft an initial draft? It's good to see you too. Yeah, that's right. Take care of this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to item 7, unfinished business. 7A, ambulance department update report.
Remind me, I'll wheel up for the question.
Does your shirt say I can't because I'm on fall or on call?
Yeah, on call normally, but I haven't been on call since before Thanksgiving, so.
Hope you're doing all
Why?
right.
We don't allow walkers.
You know, yeah. I can't drive myself, so I can't respond to calls at all, so. So when it came to you last fall, I had a grant from the state. It is the first amount on there is roughly $68,000. I got approval from the council at that time to spend that on new monitors. Another grant opportunity came up. Initially, the state said apply for it, but you're not going to get it. Was the language that they gave us because it was geared towards large municipalities. Large municipalities didn't apply for it as much as what they thought, and we ended up getting 133,000. Kind of a good problem. The other thing was that originally the 68,000, I was going to purchase new monitors for the ambulances, which were 34,000, roughly 34,000 a piece. That the state said apply for it, but you're not. Basically, that deal fell through because the supplier could not get them to us. It was going to be sometime probably in 2024, which was way past the grant timeline. So we ended up getting some different ones, basically same models, just reconditioned ones with still a 5-year warranty on them. And it's so essentially, then I also had a donation for the third one, which would have made it 94,000 total for the 3 monitors. Buying the reconditioned ones brought the price tag down with a power lift for one of the ambulances down to $44,480. Typically that power lift alone is $45,000 for one ambulance. So we're getting the 3 monitors and a power lift for one of the ambulances for a little over 44,000. So I've got a good problem of too much money. And so we're trying to find stuff to.
Could you just repeat that?
Yeah. So initially we had about $68,000 in grant money. Now we have just over 200,000 total to spend this year. Some of it I have to provide proof of purchasing stuff by the end of March. So I basically want to come back to you and say, hey, this is what. So the second list is basically, if I remember correctly, it's the ARPA excess money from the state geared specifically towards EMS, which we got $133,000 roughly from that one as well. I had to submit a budget. This is the budget I submitted and they approved. I have to submit a revised budget now that those monitors are no longer costing $94,000, they're only costing $44,500. So I now have to try to find another $50,000 to spend stuff on just for that. Plus, I also have this other $68,000 that I have to spend from the original grant. We've addressed things, we've come up with ideas of where to spend some of that money. But I don't have anything specific in writing. Part of it has been with me being out of commission kind of for the last 3 months. Yes, John.
Just to interrupt you, that the other 50,000, are we looking at a new ambulance?
No,
We're not, okay.
no, some of the departments put in for a new ambulance. I would love to, but we're a little bit early on that point. Because the issue with the new ambulance is that you have, like I said, you have to spend this money this year. And some of it by the end of March already. The problem is with the new ambulance, you're looking at anywhere from 2 to 5 years. To get one right now. And the price for a new ambulance has gone from about 172 the last time we purchased one, roughly right around 250,000 now.
Is there any, maybe it's a bad question, is there anything that we can, because your existing budget is already put together, is there anything we can maybe adjust your existing budget and take some of those funds and maybe go over to police or fire and, or someplace? No, it's gotta be, okay.
What about like repair, upgrading things on the ambulances?
Yeah, we can use it for that as well, for repairs and things like some of the money can be used for that. But the bulk of it is for purchasing new items. So that's where, I can use it for, let's see, one of the last thing on here was EMT retention bonuses. I can up that amount as well. Because right now I had put it in for like $250 per EMT as a retention bonus. This is one of the things that they put in there as a suggestion of what to spend it on. But it's how we deal with, we got to work on how we deal with, how do we pay that out, and do we have to withhold and all that other fun stuff on it yet too. So I just wanted to kind of come and let you know where we're at and what some of the things we're looking at getting. But the other thing is that some of these things I've had to make decisions on and get and spend that money before coming here. So.
You have a CPR dummy 700, now 20,000.
Correct. So 700 was the basic, it was just a piece of foam. To get one that we can actually use and practice on is roughly 20,000.
That's a smarter dummy.
Yeah.
It's a much smarter dummy. Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, and that's why I figured we have this extra money. It's like, why not use it?
Exciting.
For things that we can actually use.
So you said the power lift brand new, or is 45?
Just the
So,
power lift
Just the
alone.
power, okay,
And we're getting the power lift and 3 new monitors for the 40, just under 45.
right. Well, I guess what I was wondering is, do you need another power lift for another ambulance? No,
We can't.
okay,
The other 2 older ambulances are not set up for it.
okay,
The one we would have to send back to the manufacturer to have them put the attachments in. And that would take anywhere from 6 months to a year where we wouldn't have that ambulance.
okay,
The oldest ambulance, which is actually a 2009, which has almost 100,000 miles on it, it cannot support a power lift. So it's something that we're probably gonna spec into our future builds, but unfortunately, we can't go backwards. So
What did you say about the other ambulances in the list?
the power lift systems for the other two ambulances, so our newest ambulance is all set. Basically, the company we bought the power lift from, they can come here, they can put it in literally in a day. The second oldest ambulance, it would have to go back to the manufacturer for rework in order to put it in. And they're looking at 6 months to a year that we wouldn't have that ambulance. And the oldest ambulance, it's just not possible at all to put it in there. So,
You could always buy or have it sitting for when you do need it.
yeah.
For the next ambulance?
Yeah.
5 years?
Buy the system for the, in the next few years when we have,
Fit it in there.
yeah. So
So how much then do you have that you said you need to earmark yet? Roughly?
roughly close to 100,000.
And that 100,000 needs to be spent by the end of 23?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's not just promised, it's spent.
Yeah.
So that was the part of the problem with the original monitors. Because they couldn't give us a delivery date.
So what's your plan for that department meeting? And
We've been brainstorming as a department and trying to figure out where we can spend it and coming up, that's where we came up with the new ideas for the, where the CPR dummy went from $700 originally to 20,000. There's a few other things like that we can use. So it's just trying to figure some of those things out. Like I said, it's a good problem to have.
So Hooray for Hollywood just finished up last weekend and I know they normally give money to the rescue squad, so. And you're saying that you don't need the money this year?
We did not ask for any this year, so yeah.
All right, good.
I would love to, but yeah,
well, Joe, if you want to come back
Thank
then
you.
next month and give us an update,
yep.
that'd
I
be
will.
great.
Yeah, it's, like I said, right after this budget was approved, I got sick and I've been kind of out of commission the last few months, so. But I wanted to report back and let you know what's going on, so.
Appreciate that.
Yep,
So the second one was spring. I thought it was the same as the newest spring.
2 model years different.
So that's why it's gonna take 6 months.
Well, it's about a 2 to 3 week build, but it's getting on their schedule. And other groups that have sent them back, it's been 6 months to a year before they got their ambulances back. So, because they're that far behind,
You have to send it, I mean, they can't build it without the ambulance there.
because they actually have to cut the chassis. So. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, because the newest one is a 19. And then it's a 17 and then a 09. So they're close, but not set up the same. Yeah, it would be nice, but. Yeah. So,
Okay, anything else, Joe?
nope, that should do it.
Well, we appreciate it.
Thank
Hope
you.
Get to get on the mend here.
Yep, I am. I'm walking again, so that's a good thing.
Glad to see
So.
it. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
All right, then we'll move on to item 7B, financial issues for discussion, TIF, property tax assessments, reassessments, and public fire protection rates, information only. So I asked Heath, after hearing there's been a lot of discussion in the community about these topics, if he could weigh in and give us just a brief description of what these items are and how it affects the city and in turn the taxpayers. So Heath, I'll turn it over to you.
These are just sort of meanderings, really. TIF is actually going to like the state actually gives to local communities.
Yeah.
Is that working?
Mhm.
Okay.
Hello.
Wow.
No, it's not.
It might have went to sleep, hit the mic button. Maybe it goes off after a while, hit the bottom, the red button on the bottom.
I thought we had everything speakered up good now.
Give it a minute. It's rebooting.
It goes to sleep, I can't.
But doesn't everything else work?
Stay awake.
He doesn't talk loud enough for anything.
Hello. I suppose I yell. Yelling for me. TIF is the one singular tool that the state provides to local communities for economic development purposes. As well as for focused infrastructure improvements other than somebody paying for them separately. TIF is established by a district which identifies the various assessed properties in that area. You define the district, then you define what's called a project plan to determine what are you going to use the expected increment increase for. Generally speaking, you try to come up with some kind of a target number so you know what you're spending rather than just simply sort of shooting from whatever categories you can. Under the operation of a TIF, all taxing revenues above the baseline or assessed value are captured for use in implementing the TIF project plan. That includes all the increases for all of the taxing bodies, which for us include the city, the county, the school district, and WTC. Because it impacts these other taxing bodies as well, all of them are represented in what's called a joint review board, which has to officially sign off on the TIF and the TIF project plan and any amendments that you make to them. The tax increment increase over the base assessed value for all taxing bodies would be retained by the TIF district as managed by the city for whatever the period of time, usually 20 or 25 years. After which any leftover increase retained in the district is refunded back to those taxing bodies, the corresponding percentage of the total tax revenue. We have one current TIF district left, TID number 3, which was approved in 2020 following the state statutes as required. TIF districts only accumulate revenue or tax increment from changes in properties within the TIF district that result in an increase in assessments. If an established TIF district does not cover any area where development occurs, none of the increase in assessed value can be captured by the TIF district. So for example, if you have a property that's outside the TIF district that sees redevelopment, none of that is captured within the current concept of the TIF district. It's not within the district itself. Our current TID number 3 has no revenue increases since its inception. Well, virtually none. In fact, it's currently $20,000 in negative due to expenses assigned to the fund in the last 3 years. The Hamachek-Lochner property is located in TID number 3. Would accumulate tax increment if redeveloped, provided the property is sold to a private property owner. However, because there is no revenue generated in TID 3 at present, any cost to be incurred in redevelopment would have to be charged against a loan or a bond issue using TID 3 promise of additional revenues, like a revenue bond. This is ultimately a case of betting against oneself, since it would require the city to place a stake in a development project that may or may not work out. If the development doesn't work out, the city is on the hook for the debt incurred by the loan or bond issue via general fund revenues. One other note, reassessments of properties occurred last year do not result in tax increment increases. Therefore, the recent reassessment did nothing to improve the financial situation of TID number 3. Property tax assessments and reassessments. In 2022, the city assessor, Mike Mulver, prepared a comprehensive reassessment of all properties in the city. And as part of the required reassessment process, under state statute, this process is required every 5 years at a minimum. You can do it more frequently than that, but its baseline is 5 years. This process is intended so that the assessed value more clearly matches the actual market value of each property. Waiting for longer periods of time between reassessments increases the sticker shock of the reassessment, and lack of doing so can also create problems in terms of how you assess taxes and how you require people to pay taxes. I will give one example. For many years, I worked in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They have no such requirement to require repeated reassessments. The place I used to live in, Chester County, Pennsylvania, has last reassessed, as far as I can remember, as far as I know. Last time they did a reassessment was 1998. So now it's 25 years. At the same base rate level. And with the level of development that occurs in a county over the course of 25 years, you now have 25 years worth of assessments. That are all occurring at different levels and different rates. So then they have to include factors. Calculated factors for every single year and every single assessment, every single type. So now you can imagine how hard and complicated it is trying to determine. What property tax is supposed to be paid by an individual property. The last time they did this in 1998, they hadn't done it for years, and there was a hue and cry about what they did to people, but I think that's why they don't do them. But the problem is that by not doing them, they just increase the standard for problems later on. After the reassessment is completed and signed off by the State Department of Revenue, which is required as part of this process, the property tax rate, which is the mill rate associated with each taxing body, is readjusted for properties in the city. So the total value of taxes accrued essentially a form of equalization with the prior level of taxation. So for example, if the total assessed value of all properties in the city doubles under the reassessment, the tax rate would be reduced by approximately 50% to bring everybody, the total taxation, the total revenue basically continues. It just gets spread differently by different property owners. So if one's property gets assessed higher, the tax rate drops. And so there may be an increase in the tax you pay as an individual property owner, but overall, the overall assessment doesn't change anything for the city. So you don't use reassessment to simply just increase revenue. You can't do that because it's not allowed under state law. You only continue the same level. You're just changing who pays what tax.
I think that's the key point right there.
Yeah.
Is the misconception that my property bill went up, the city's getting more money, and they're just doing that so the city can get more money in their general fund, and that's just simply not the case.
Yeah, you're only allowed a certain increase per year as specified by state law. So we're not increasing, if all the assessments double, we're not getting twice the tax revenue. We're still getting roughly the same revenue. It's just getting split up. And the property tax rate goes down to account for that extra increase in assessment each year.
I think it's important to know though, too, that one of the reasons we did this was because the city had a deficit in doing the budget to the tune of what, 200 and.
Well, that's not.
That's
we're-
different
we're
issue.
kind of on next subject.
The next about the property tax. Okay. I skipped out the later.
I'll jump to the hydrant
Yeah,
rental
okay.
fee. The name itself is a bit of a misnomer. We call it hydrant rental fee in the budget, but it's essentially a charge for maintenance of the hydrants within the city, which are considered what we would call public fire protection. They're a utility system in the city and they're linked to the water line. So therefore that's why you would do something. The fee is a cost of maintenance as imposed on the city for this maintenance. As dictated by state mandate, and has been provided through the general fund budget in preceding years. It is currently included in the current budget year, but we're planning to transition over as a separate flat rate billed item attached to water utility bills on water customers starting in June and July. Why are we doing this? First reason is this general fund is primarily funded with property tax. Many property owners in the city currently are not on a public water system. Therefore, these property owners not gaining any direct benefit from dedicating property tax revenue, which is in the amount of $240,000 for fiscal 23 to maintain hydrants. They will only benefit from the dispersal of fire apparatus in case of a fire, services which are also provided by the general fund. The second reason is that switching to the water utility bill means that customers are subject to this public fire protection fee, which includes property owners who currently pay no property tax to the city. Doing this switch permits the Common Council rededicate the prior hydrant rental funding to other infrastructure maintenance, such as roads, or provisions for requested services such as police, fire, or EMS. In order to make this transition, the city prepared and submitted a water utility rate study in the State Public Service Commission for review. Water utility customers were notified of this potential increase in the most recent bill, though we didn't include any specific numbers at the time because we didn't have them. The rate study as submitted to the PSC estimates the public fire protection fee at $23.75 bi-monthly per residential customer, which is defined as a minimum of 8,000 gallons of usage quarterly on a 3/4 inch meter. It should be noted that the rate study also states the water rates overall should be increased from the current average charge of $40.78 for the same customer to a $48.94 bi-monthly, which is about a 20% increase. This is to keep up with rising cost to operate and maintain the water utility system and treatment facility. PSC will review the rate study. They schedule a public hearing, which they're required to do under state law. Make a final determination on the rates to be charged both for water utility fees for the public fire protection fee. Final decision is anticipated in a few months, probably March or April, I'm thinking. June, well, we will know about it by June, and then we start attaching it to the fee. And
Only half the fee, correct? In 2024, that's gonna jump up, correct?
Yes,
yes,
yes.
so $23.75 bi-monthlies for the remainder of 2023.
And then
I don't know. I don't know what that number looks like. I didn't see that in the file.
We probably won't know that until the PSC comes out with their final opinion.
Yeah, they'll probably tell us at what point, what the number goes to, starting in 2024.
I guess my point is, we will have to raise it again for 2024.
It probably will
That's
have
my
to be
point.
raised. Yeah,
Correct.
but like any other water utility rate, it's subject to increases over time.
Sure.
The PSC is in charge of that.
Yeah.
We aren't.
And they're the ones who control it because they control water utilities.
But we control the hydrant rental fee.
No,
Not the fee.
they tell us
I
that.
mean, we control whether the hydrant rental fee goes on the sewer and water utility bill. That we control.
At this point, yes. But I mean, the PSC is gonna approve, if they approve it,
They'll approve the rate.
well,
but
they'll
just-
also approve if we can put it onto the utility bill or not.
They will. Okay.
Yes.
But once they do, then I'm sure that's the no going back.
Correct.
Now we're there.
So Heath, going back to the TIF, just to clarify that this, I understand this. If the TIF is used and the city, the people within the city limits are the ones on the hook for that TIF. Nobody in the county other than the city limit people, correct? Because it doesn't get thrown throughout the county.
No, but what the TIF does is it allows you to collect all the tax revenue increase in increment.
Right.
And allows you to take from all the taxing bodies, whatever that total tax would be, the increment increase. You can basically like keep paying on to all of that. They all get their taxes, they all get a tax level, they just don't get a tax level of the baseline. So there's a whatever the gap is in it for any improvement, like for example, Hemachick Clockton, whatever tax revenue would be generated on that property, we would capture the tax revenue until such time as it moves forward. In their case, they don't, in the case of something like Hemachick Clockner, they don't care because right now they're getting nothing. So nothing now versus nothing when it's developed initially is fine with them because they realize that if you use TIF correctly, you can it helps to increase the revenue for them going forward. So by the time the TIF closes, then they'll get a revenue bump. It'll jump for that particular property. That's the goal.
Which obviously takes time. By the time you get the development completed, and then it cycles through tax years
Right.
where that revenue of tax comes back to the city.
Right, so if somebody were to build something on that property, finish building it by the end of the year, we're not gonna see anything on it until 2025. Because it won't be taxed, it won't be assessed until.
So that's the pot of money that doesn't exist, that we're trying to fill that pot.
Yeah.
And the long and short of it.
But also if we use the TIF money
Mhm.
for projects and the project doesn't work out and there's no incremental increase, the
Right.
city is on the hook for all of that money that we spent on the TIF.
That's right. That's one of the reasons why the prior city attorney and Tony along with him. And I would tell you that if you're going to do something like that. Where you're using TIF money for a specific development project, you want to know specifically what it's for. You want to nail that down, you want to know how much they're going to be asking for. You want to nail down that you're going to be doing it on a pay-as-you-go basis. So that you're not just simply handing them a check at the front end. You want to make sure that stuff gets done and then, okay, you're done, so we'll give you the money for what you just did. so that they're on the hook for it. It would be like us getting a grant to build something and then we pay it upfront and then they reimburse us. It's like a reimbursement system. Just we would be acting as the reimburser instead of a grant agency or something like that.
Could the TIF money be given at the end of the project? Does it have to be pay as you go?
You don't necessarily have to. It depends on the nature of what your negotiation was. If you're handing them money like a bonus for showing up. But you can usually work that into your development agreement so that, again, it's written down. You want to have all of this stuff written down and you want to have it verified by your attorney. And you want to have it verified by your engineer so that you know that what you're actually getting. You actually got what they said they were gonna do.
I just wouldn't like to see TIF money invested into a project. And then the project's abandoned. And the city's sitting there with $1.5 million bill.
Yeah.
That nobody's paying. That's my point.
Yeah, you don't, I would definitely advise you never to hand somebody money before they even get started. Cause then they have no incentive to proceed.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? I appreciate that, Heath. I know it took some time to put that together, but I hope that that'll help clarify it for some of those people that were questioning the whys and the hows that some of that stuff works. And I believe we're able to put that in our website in some sort of a tab that if somebody wants to look at this description that you laid out so well, they can do that at their leisure. So I think Joanne said that can happen, right, Joanne?
Yep.
Beautiful, thank you. All right, thanks again. Then we'll move on to item 8A. New business, award bid for 2023 blight elimination, demolition and grading project.
Okay, the city advertised for bids for demolition construction projects to be included in the 2023 blight elimination grading projects, which all the projects from here on in early January editions of the Green Bay Press Gazette. Bidding process would include contacting the city's consulting engineers, Cedar Corporation, who are seated behind me, downloading the bid documents, responding to the bid documents completely by the advertised deadline of Thursday, January 26th. This is for 3 properties in the city, Fisherman's Point, 1304 Ellis Street, which is the drab property, and 123 Kilbourne Street. On January 26th, the city staff and Cedar Corp opened bids for the projects, which include demolition, removal, and grading aspects for those 3 properties. Though the bulk of the work will be conducted at Fisherman's Point. Summary of the materials submitted in Cedar Corp's analysis are attached to our memo here. The low bidder is typically the choice if possible, provided the bidder is considered responsible or responsive. A reasonable work record in their bid package is complete. Standard practice is that the responsible low bidder receives approval unless common council believes another bidder is necessary. Based on the analysis provided, the responsible low bidder in this case is Peters Concrete Company of Green Bay with a bid amount of $536,786.55. Note the cost of this work is covered by the CDBG blight control funds received by the city. No additional general fund monies are anticipated with this work effort. Which will result in 3 clean, ready for development sites by the end of the current calendar year, although as specified in the CDBG blight requirements, they can't actually be used for 5 years unless they're being used for affordable housing specific projects, as defined by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Therefore, that's our recommendation is to accept the bid of Peters Construction Company and start negotiation with them for this contract.
So do I have a motion to approve the Peters Construction Company for $536,786.55?
I would move that we accept the bid from Peters
Is there a
Construction.
second?
I'll second.
Any kind of discussion?
I just had, a couple of things quick here. I know the contract documents and everything, and there's, the notice of award is within these. So this is the contract for the work. I have 1 copy for the owner, 1 for the engineer, and 1 for the contractor as well. So whoever you guys designate as your representative, whether that's Heath or the mayor to sign, the actual award and the contract, we'll need signatures on that, and then I will send this stuff to the contractor, who then has to respond with their proper bidding and insurance stuff, their performance bonding, their payment bonding, and proper insurance requirement. So they would bring that information back to us. we review it, make sure they have everything in place that we would have authorized rep from the city settlement from the agreement, once they have the property documentation.
Have the designee signature spelled out in the offer, I mean, in the motion?
That's up to you guys, you know, it's a preference thing, whether it be the administrator, mayor, I mean, clerk, different communities do it different ways, that can be whatever you guys would decide.
You want me to do it?
That's fine.
Then I'll go ahead and sign.
Yeah.
I'll sign it for you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Kathy Brown. John Blaha.
Yes.
James Brewster.
Aye.
Wendy Shelton. Aye. Janina Zimmerman.
Aye.
Robin Nelson.
Aye.
Richard Taylor.
Aye.
Eric Woznicki.
Abstain. All right, motion carried. Item 8B, request approval to authorize a sanitary sewer rate study in the amount of $4,900. Once he's done signing over there, I'll let him capture that. Listen, Nate, did you want to do that?
No, it's actually, go ahead.
I can get this from you after the meeting if you want to.
Okay, you want to just leave it up here and I'll do it.
Yeah, sounds good.
As noted previously, the water rate study submitted to the PSC indicated the water rate charged by the city would soon run below the expenditure anticipated. And the water utility projected going into the negative in about 1 to 2 years. To counter this and to meet the PSC standard for budgeting for utility maintenance, the recommendation was to increase the rate by 20%. The water utility rate study was ultimately done to approve a rate for the hydrant rental fee as previously discussed. However, the increase in the water rates forced staff to consider the possibility the sanitary sewer rate is also too low. Therefore, this request was made to see if Onward Accounting and Consulting, which did our rate study for the water utility, to do the same sort of study for sanitary sewer rates. And the consultants provided a response, including references to similar studies for the city of De Pere, city of Antigo, Scott Sanitary District, Fish Creek Sanitary District, Freedom Sanitary District, and Village Alloway. Proposed project cost for this rate study would be $4,900. Finance Committee reviewed this last week and recommended to approve the study for that cost. If nothing else, what we believe from staff's perspective is that this study would at least help the city determine how we compare with other communities in terms of rates. There's no requirement for this kind of study, but would give us better understanding of how our rates compare where we're headed. No such study has ever been completed by the city. The last time we did a water rate study before now was in 2012. Therefore, what we would do is the study would be paid for through the sewer fund, Fund 620. So that's our recommendation, is to go ahead and do a sanitary rate study just to see where we are. Our costs versus what we actually are providing. And, you know, I should also add that we may find in the study that we may not need to do anything. It's very possible. Our revenues on the sanitary sewer side will actually look not too bad, relatively speaking. But who knows? We honestly don't really know, and that's why we want to do the study, just to see where we are. Because we've never done one, so.
Okay, then do we have a motion to approve and authorize a sanitary sewer study in the amount of $4,900?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Please call it.
Kathy Brown. John Blaha.
Yes.
James Brewster.
Aye.
Wendy Shelton.
Aye.
Janina Zimmerman.
Aye.
Robin Nelson.
Aye.
Richard Taylor.
Aye.
Eric Woznicki.
Motion carried.
No, who's second? I'm sorry.
Nelson.
Okay, thank you.
Item 8C, approve marina, water, sewer, and lighthouse budgets for fiscal year 2023.
The remaining leftover budgets for fiscal 23 are those funded through fees rather than property tax, which required a public hearing under state statute. These budgets are generally for Fund 203, Fund 611, and 620. I have the copy of the minutes drawn from the Finance Committee meeting from February 7th in there for your review. The reviewed fiscal year 23 budgets for those funds will be provided for council members for adoption. I'm assuming Joanne did something like that. The city administrator provided comments to the Finance Committee regarding these budgets, as I included in the analysis. Concern is how revenues, particularly for water and sewer utility funds, seem to be short of the amount budgeted. Especially this last year, where we noted that the projected versus what we actually ended up versus actual was much larger gap than we typically see. We usually are within about 94%. And last year we were short. So we're gonna be trying to piece that out. And I also pointed out the 3-year return, a negative return on some of these situations. It was noted, the Marina Fund ended up 50,000 in the red last year. We can chop that up in a number of ways. One of the things that I would note is that we ended up spending $74,000 on dock repairs last spring, and then you added another 22,000 plus on impellers, so that you didn't have that problem this spring. Thus far, according to Public Works and the Marina manager, that seems to be working because despite the cost to run the electricity through those impellers, which is not small, they are preventing a lot of damage. The water around the docks is generally speaking moving. They've also pulled the fingers up so that they're not in the water getting damaged, which is also a benefit. We sort of made some changes to how we let those things sit in the water over the winter so we can keep those things from occurring. But as I would say, the types of expenditures that we incurred last year in the Marina budget, if they're treated as one-time costs, we shouldn't have that problem this year. The utility funds balances represent the issue of trying to feed systems that are decades old. One of the things we had recently was the cast in place pipe project on Miller Street because maintenance is so expensive. And solutions that extend the life of the existing materials absolutely need to be implemented. It is noted that the existing available balances for both utility funds are still listed at well over $1.3 million. But we don't want to see ourselves in continued negative balances to drain those eventually. One of the things that we're using comes more into focus when we talk about the Harbor Master Plan Amendment and the boat launch project, which includes significant capital projects that would require assistance through grants. The current funding structure of the marina isn't sufficient to cover the cost of loans for those capital projects, and the city is thus far not dedicated funding sufficient to pay for these capital costs. Although it should be noted that the city hasn't sufficiently dedicated budgets for capital costs really anywhere else over the last several years. These budgets are fee-based, which means the amount of expenditures are tied significantly to revenues. It's also, as noted, each fund has a fund balance entering fiscal 23, but it's not recommended to reduce fund balances unless there is an emergency, as I noted in the Marina this last year. So we're just recommending budgets for approval, and Finance Committee also agreed to move forward with the budgets as drawn up.
Okay, then do we have a motion to approve those budgets for fiscal year 2023? Is
I'll take the motion to approve those.
there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call roll.
Kathy Brown. John Black.
Yes.
James Brewster.
Aye.
Wendy Shelton.
Aye.
Jenny Zimmerman.
Aye.
Robin Nelson.
Aye.
Richard Taylor.
Aye.
Eric Woznicki.
Aye, motion carries. 8D, approve increase in hours for administrative assistant for remainder of 2023.
Staff is requesting to increase the hours for a part-time administrative assistant from the current 20 hours per week to 32 hours per week. Purpose is to provide additional flexibility to assist staff in both clerk's office as well as the police department with purely administrative tasks currently absorbed by patrol officers and particularly by the chief of police. Ultimately, this role will be revisited for fiscal year 2024. When we do that budget for the remainder of 2023, starting on February 20th, this would represent an increase of $11,878.42 personnel costs for this position, which includes primarily $9,504 for pay, along with increase for FICA due to the city contribution, and also because once we reach over 25 hours, then we put her into the retirement system. The position would automatically go into the retirement system once you reach 25 hours under state law. Staff is not anticipating any health plan participation for the remainder of fiscal 23. This again also would be addressed with the next budget. Personnel Committee reviewed this proposal as a full-time position in their meeting in December, recommended approval. Subject to working out the financial issues through Finance Committee. The Finance Committee reviewed this request last week and recommended approval. This, we believe, is a means to try to address some restrictions in the police department that are currently unbudgeted because they didn't anticipate any level of approval. Police chief role has long been tasked with being both the administrative chief, the person responsible for administrative tasks, as well as also being a full-time patrol officer. Administrative staff of the city believes this is too much to handle for a single position, and the proposal is to simply provide up to 12 hours per week to try to do some of those, as I say, purely administrative duties that otherwise the chief ends up doing or assigning to the assistant chief or just covering it as they can. Funding for this position will come from undedicated funding in the fiscal 23 budget and remain unspent funds left over from fiscal 22.
So we had discussed this as possibly being a position that we would be considering expanding the hours to make it attractive to get someone. We were having a hard time getting applicants before we actually hired the last two people probably. And I had talked to Chief Kleiman at the time, and it was thought that, you know, there's just a lot of administration down there that they're not becoming any more paperless, if you will. So again, it was discussed that we could possibly go to this, and it sounds like our administrative assistant at this time is willing to do that, looking to doing that. And I think for retention and everything else and getting things done through the administration, I strongly recommend this as well. So do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve increase in hours for part-time administrative assistant for the remainder of fiscal year 2023.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Kathy Brown.
Aye.
John Blanca. James Brewster.
Aye.
Wendy Shelton. Janina Zimmerman. Aye. Wendy Nelson, Robin Nelson. Hi. Richard Taylor.
Aye.
Eric Wisniewski.
Motion carries. Item 8E, adopt a resolution authorizing the city of Kewaunee to direct charge public fire protection.
It's a lot. As mentioned earlier, we used onward accounting to conduct a water utility rate study. This resolution reflects the legal requirements reflected in state statute section 186.03. Parents 3, parents B, to verify that the common council is authorizing such a change. As requested to go to public fire protection as a fee attached to the water utility rate. This is a standard requirement for the PSC consideration. It's basically the city saying we agree to do this. Otherwise, I don't think they would ever move forward with the public hearing otherwise.
Probably not.
It would probably be a requirement. So there's no physical change. This is just incorporated. So it's
All right, so do we have a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the city of Kewaunee to direct charge public fire protection?
I make a motion.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Kathy Brown.
Aye.
John Blanca.
Yes.
James Brewster.
Aye.
Wendy Shelton.
Aye.
Janina Zimmerman. Aye. Wendy Nelson. Robin Nelson. Aye. Richard Taylor.
Aye.
Eric Wisniewski.
Aye.
Motion carried. 8F, request approval of the harbor master plan amendment.
I'm going to turn this over to Cedar Court so they can answer questions or do a presentation or.
Good evening. Eric Fuddle, Senior Planner of Cedar Corporation. I know you've had this document for a while, and I think I was here in September, it might have been, giving a brief overview. And so I'm not going to do anything really fancy here, but just kind of summarize. The intent of doing this study is really revisiting the harbor management plan or master plan and the sites and the recommendations in there under the lens of coastal resiliency. Obviously, the flooding impacts, the weather related impacts have grown over the years. And you certainly noticed that and caused some economic harm as well. This effort was really an outgrowth of the Lakeshore Natural Resource Partnership's Coastal Resilience Community Impact Project. And by virtue of connecting with LNRP and the folks they're working with, we were able to obtain 100% funded grant from the Fund for Lake Michigan to conduct that study. So we partnered with Edgewater Resources, a marina consultant, and went through a process that started, I believe, in April of 2022 and wrapped things up in October. Kind of did the standard inventory, reassess what's in the current plan and the sites. We did a 2-day intensive design charrette, which a good handful of you were part of. That included a bus tour, which I thought was enlightening and really helped to spark conversations while you're at the site. Went through a process to kind of generate ideas and craft concept plans for review and refinement by that group. And then as part of that, we also took a look at least cursory prioritization. So the outcomes essentially is that we evaluated 19 of the sites along the waterfront and harbor area. 11 concept plans were drawn up and included in the report. And for 10 of them, cost estimates were prepared. One, which was noted, I believe, in the memo, is Fisherman's Point, and there's a 5-year period where no development can happen. So we weren't going to bother doing cost estimates because they'll be woefully out of date. The prioritization, again, at a very broad level, and these things could change depending on the group that's in the room. But at least at that point in time, Fisherman's Point was a high priority because I think the opportunity for economic development and growth, tax base. River Landing was a second priority. I think the nature of the group working on this really appreciated the opportunity to have more of the silent sports area and not have everything revolve around motorboats. And then third, the marina, which I think is always a high priority in your community just for what it is and part of your economic base associated with the natural resource. Project examples, a wide variety of things were developed, but really taking a look at how those sites could better utilize some of the concepts of resiliency, looking at natural stormwater management opportunities, softening shorelines, creation of habitat, improving public access. A number of different types of projects are in there. What I thought was interesting and sort of documented in there also was really the way people engaged and understood that all of these sites obviously have kind of independent uses, but they really need to kind of work together. You've got a system here of extensive resources of waterfront lands, unlike any other community, and trying to connect those sites, use it to your advantage in terms of attracting economic development, visitors, businesses, all of those things is certainly high on that list as well. This is an advisory document. It's essentially an update of the previous plan. It does not commit the city to anything, but I think it hopefully gives you a better idea of these thoughts and these dreams and this vision and putting a price tag to that. And I think it's roughly about $15 million, which is not inexpensive, and certainly you don't have that much in your checking account. But it does set the stage for future discussions about more realistic prioritization, strategies for funding. Certainly the intent of doing this document was to put the city in a ready position to take advantage of funding opportunities, whether existing or there's new ones coming down the line, whether it's through the bipartisan infrastructure law, Great Lakes Restoration Fund. There'll be more programs and more dollars released in the years to come. So that's really a summary, high level. But I'm certainly happy to entertain any questions you have or any concerns.
Just a quick question here. In this plan here, in the project plan, I see they have harbor, they have Selner Park improvements. This was done, did we add quite a bit to the Selner Park improvements? Because I see it was at 700,000 here. Now it's 2.1 million.
One of the biggest cost items in there is the thought that the ideal situation would be to still connect Selner Park with the other park. And so the acquisition of the properties in between which is kind of throwing darts for a number in this market, certainly. But that's the reason of the big difference in there.
Does anyone else have any questions? Questions? Well, thank you, Eric. You were apparently clear and concise.
Don't want to keep any longer than you already are. Thank you. Pleasure working with the city on this
Appreciate
project.
that. All right, so do we have a motion to approve the Harbor Master Plan amendment?
I will make a motion to approve the master plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Request approval of the proposed boat launch.
Turn it over to another.
Hello, I did have a presentation. I can try to go through it relatively quick. I'm Teresa Qualls. I'm the Wisconsin Clean Marina Program Coordinator. I think this is the third time I've spoke to the council. I spoke to the Public Property Committee back in November. So I'm just gonna I'll try to go through this relatively quickly, give a quick overview, and then provide you with the updates that we have as the first phase of this project is coming to completion. Gotta do it, yeah, just present it. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So I think most of you should be familiar. What is the Clean Marina program? So I'm the coordinator. It's a voluntary certification program that prevents boating pollution, improves water quality through the adoption of best management practices. And we really work closely with these marinas, provide them with technical assistance as they're going through the certification process. And then we help and we recognize and promote those marinas who are meeting the BMPs. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so the Clean Marina program launched back in 2010, and this is a map of the current participating marinas as of 2022. So we have 21 certified, 24 pledged, there in yellow. Kewaunee pledged in May of 2021, and they are currently working on their certification. I've been working closely with Augie the past couple of years, and I think the goal is to have Kewaunee become certified this upcoming boating season. Okay, next slide, please. So through the Clean Marina program, we got a grant through the Fund for Lake Michigan to help our clean marinas implement best management practices. It was found that there was always a couple of these best management practices that were difficult for marinas, just because there was more involved and the cost that was involved. So we got a grant to help these marinas implement these. So the grant was divided into two phases. The first phase is to identify which marinas we're going to work with and come up with the conceptual design. And then phase two, we would go back to the Fund for Lake Michigan to get the implementation dollars. And the marinas that we're looking at are going to be on Lake Michigan. So you can go to the next slide. So Kewaunee was selected as one of the sites, and we are looking at a boat washing station as well as stormwater improvements at the Kewaunee Marina boat launch. We chose this site for a number of reasons. One is that the marina has a really great economic impact in the region. This project was really integrated with other projects that are occurring, and we really want to make this site more resilient with the flooding issues that occurred a few years ago. Okay, next slide, please. I kind of went through the phase one and phase two. This just so we're basically focusing on phase one and we're winding phase one down. So I can kind of present on the updates. You can go on to the next slide. So since this project has been started, we selected the consultant, which was Rupert and Milky. They conducted a drone flight. They came up with a proposed conceptual design. We did an in-person site visit. And then we held an open house in September at the marina. And that was to gather community feedback. And then based on some of the feedback and working with the city staff and marina staff, it was the final conceptual design was developed as well as cost estimates, and they were included in the meeting packet. Okay, so this is our kind of like final conceptual design for the site. So we're gonna be installing a boat cleaning station. Again, this station has two purposes. One is to be able to clean boats from aquatic invasive species. And the second purpose of the boat cleaning station is to do the end of the season pressure wash of boats prior to storage. There were 3 bioretention areas are proposed in green. These are to help with to capture stormwater pollution. They were designed to, they're basically like a rain garden. They can capture 1 inch of water storage. And then it's really to help improve water quality of the stormwater prior to reaching the lake. A big part of the project would be to having to raise the parking lot 2 feet. This would raise it above the 100-year floodplain, and this would really help reduce flooding. They're proposing to relocate the fish cleaning station, as well as reconstructing the west boat launch. So during the high water levels and water conditions, the boat launch was not usable a few years ago. So they're proposing to reconstruct the west boat launch so that it could be used in all different water conditions. And then they're also proposing to extend the boardwalk from this parking lot to the marina itself. So the next slide, you can go to the next slide, please. So this is just an example of one of the AIS aquatic invasive species removal stations. So it's a waterless, user operated cleaning equipment. This is just one of the models that was proposed. These cleaning stations, there's like 3 or 4 of them up in Door County. They've been used quite successfully in Northeast Wisconsin. Okay. And then the next slide. So this is just the list that Ruker and Melke came up with of a few possible funding sources to help with some of the projects that wouldn't be covered under our grant. This is not an exhaustive list. This list was also included in your packet as well. Okay, so then I can just talk about the next steps. So they're finalizing the engineering plan with the specs. They're going to be coming up with a summary report, which includes the conceptual design, the engineering plans, cost estimates, and specs. And then they also are having a GIS story map, and I can share that once that is finalized. And the entire phase 1 of this project will be completed by the end of March, if not sooner. So again, we are just been really enjoying working with the city on this project as we hope the city considers implementing this, and we are, here as partners, and it's been great to work with everyone, including Augie and other city staff. So try to go through that quickly. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Yes.
Okay, so I think this is it's an ambitious, wonderful project. I just worry about the cost, how we're gonna pay for everything. So now I'm reading through things. The potential UWC grant covered costs of subtotal is $91,000. Okay, and you turn the page over and it's a $2 million project.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So a big chunk of this is going to be raising the parking lot. And I know Ruker and Milky did point out that as the city, if you're coordinating with other projects that occur, they did say that if you can, coordinate with other city road infrastructure projects to bring in pulverized or milled materials to help us fill, that could really help reduce the cost. So that's why there was other funding. Yes. I definitely agree with you.
It's just a lot. It seems to me like what the recommendation is that what we would really need to do to raise the parking lot 3 feet is to get a loan.
Yeah, I mean, there could be some grants out there as well to help with some of this as well, because it will help it become a more resilient site, because that's the biggest issue.
And how much would you estimate the grants?
That I can.
I guess that's my concern with this project. It's just a lot of money.
It is,
To go along with that, I know that we're supposed to have a Dodge Street project this year at some point that might work to our advantage. Also, do we have any of that material that we might be able to use to raise the grade at what is currently slated to be our business park? Rubble that was taken from the old Hamachek property? Is there, those piles are still up there of old crushed brick and aggregate up there? Is it still there?
That's all coal mingled in there. That's all just spoils of
Not really suitable for any kind of use like this?
All I could possibly use would be if we when we grind the blacktop pile that we currently have with the wood steel property. That's 1,000, and it was like 12 to 1,500 yards on the white end. I estimated that, so. Not to mention if there's any material that may or may not get ground from Fisherman's Point could also be a possibility.
I mean, part of what we're gonna have here is not so much the financial commitment up front, but we have to have a plan. We have to have a target, address the problem. And then in turn, we can seek these grants, and some of the grants, like you said, it's not all inclusive, but some of them are listed. And I mean, we're not gonna be able to just borrow the money to do it.
And we won't have the numbers until March 31st. Correct?
Correct, right? 31st of March.
We won't have the numbers.
Oh, I think the cost estimates probably won't change of what he's provided, but yeah, the final report will be by the end, so. It's pretty much completed. I know they're just finalizing everything, so I think the numbers that were provided, I don't think that's gonna change between now and March.
So if we were to approve this boat launch plan, are we also committing to the financials?
We're not, correct? He's,
No, this. All you're doing is you're just simply
It's the same-
saying
it's-
this, it's the same basic concept. It's like an extension of the harbor master
Yes,
plan amendment. You're just.
it's identical.
Accept the plan.
It's a concept with an opinion of probable cost
Okay.
attached to it. Which can be used for future grant requests because
Phase one was just coming up with the design and then putting the cost out there, so people even have an idea of what these type of projects.
So we're not committing exactly to.
No, but I don't think we don't accept the plan. We can't put in for grant money.
Well, I know, yes, but
It's more to get the project shovel ready, so if grand dollars were to come across, you are already in the game and ahead of the game to take care of, utilize it.
We could end up like the ambulance and have a lot
We don't just go to the.
Right? So I would make a motion
Okay, is there a motion?
to approve the boat launch plan.
Is there
Like second.
any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
You also have, Pritchard from the draft.
I just wanted to stop and say we're very supportive. I've stopped once or twice before. I think my cousin Hans was here. As the fertilizer production manager for the Grain Corporation in Algoma. We capture as much as we can, and not capture, but we collect as much fish scrap from commercial and sport fishing processors around Lake, not just Lake Michigan, the Great Lakes. And we process millions of pounds of fish every year. I see in the plan, there's a fish cleaning station. We want to commit to, being supportive of that. And I know that I can't speak for my cousin Hans, who is the one that writes the checks, but financially, we would certainly want to support the building of a fish cleaning station. We'd certainly then be glad to take all the scrap away and grind it up and turn it into fertilizer.
Be happy to have you come back and have those conversations.
Absolutely. So, and it's just exciting to get to this point too, kind of see that there's some, finalization to the plan and please keep us informed and we'll try to keep up with Augie and he's been, good to keep us informed so far, but as things go on, please let us know. We're excited about it and hope we can partner together. Thanks, everybody.
All right, item 8H, approved combination Class A retail license for Kewaunee Business Development LLC, DBA Harbor Express 202 Milwaukee Street. I had Carrie Basadev, agent. Now, it's my understanding this will be pending the formal background check. I think our chief's here. You're gonna be conducting that at some point? Okay. So pending that clears through with no snafus, I would entertain a motion to approve that license.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 8I, financial reports month ending December 2022. Any comments or questions on those?
I would just say that the finances for December, in the finance committee, the finances for December were reviewed, and with the software change and upcoming audit, we are waiting for a verification and confirmation of the numbers.
All right, any other, if not, I would entertain a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Kathy Brown. Aye. John Blaha.
Yep.
James Brewster.
Aye.
Wendy Shelton.
Aye.
Janita Zimmerman. Aye. Robin Nelson.
Aye.
Richard Taylor.
Aye.
Eric Woznicki.
Motion carried.
I will see.
Item 9, announcements. Are there any announcements this evening? Oh, yes, Wendy, go ahead.
This is a photo. This is a smaller photo, an 8x10 by 8x10, but John Wilderby donated an 11x22 for the History Center. And what it is, it's from 1995. He thinks they have the top off, the lamp room is off, so that he donated, and that's down at the History Center now.
Very nice.
So he gave me, yeah, of the lighthouse, the top going on with everybody. But it was quite a nice donation. John Wilderby, JON WILD. RUBE.
Very good. Any other announcements?
The Hooray for Hollywood finished up after 3 shows last weekend. They set records. For the first time, they sold out 405 tickets to all 3 shows. They gave up more $499 50/50 awards than they've ever given out. They should net well in excess of $50,000, which will all go to charity within Kewaunee County. So thank you for those people that supported Ready for Hollywood.
They would donate to the boat launch.
Any other announcements?
Hey, could I just add something? I'm really sorry. I'm from Manitowoc County and I'm involved with something called Heartorama. Somebody here probably knows about it.
Yep.
You've
Been
heard
to it.
about it. A group that puts together 6 nights and you get 400 people to show up each night.
Yes,
We barely made it to 300 last year, and it was 50 years of doing our product.
2 nights and 1 matinee.
Well done, really nice. And a lot of money, that's 50 grand, that's a lot of money.
All right, then I'll call this common council meeting adjourned.
Fine. Hi, is here. I was running us hungry. I have ribs at home. Not ribs.
So like, I'm not in the States, but I'm sure. So their taxes go up.
Yeah.
That the baseline, their taxes go up. I understand this is that.
Yeah, they sold more food, more than the bar. It was just the best year they've had. It went really well. And one of the things that really helped, they finally started selling tickets online.
And.
And they probably sold 85 tickets for Sunday
Noodles.
on Saturday.
And.
Yeah.
Sunday wasn't sold out.
It was.
But everybody
Sold out this.
Yeah.
I heard your name is.
Yeah.
They might be.
Yeah.
It was-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Extra 2 hours, like people deciding to.